Ooh.
Hey there, Megan Jansen here with Employee Wellness Solutions Network. I'm still on a year-long mission talking to so many influencers, motivators, people who are passionate about making our workplaces better. I want to continue this conversation, elevate the profile, and I've tracked down an extremely busy fellow maritimer, Terry Gillis. Terry, you're owner of ARIA Consulting. You've been in the people business for 25 years, not to age you at all. But you've been
like a day over 20.
You're passionate about helping organizations be and do their best. And one of the things I love about what you do, from what I know, is you believe strength from organizations comes from its people. And I absolutely love that message.
Absolutely. There's absolutely no question in my mind. Even the most mechanical, automated organizations in the world are only as good as the people that are working in them and for them, frankly. So that holds across service organizations, it holds across product development, manufacturing, you name an industry. That's absolutely abundantly true, I believe.
Well, and you take organizations through, as you says behind you, that you transform work. How does that happen? I know that it's a loaded question, but I know that culture, leadership, and engagement are all part of what you're passionate about. So let's get right into that. How do you do it?
Well, I mean, the transforming work has, probably a triple entendre to it, made quite purposefully, because we're not just transforming the work itself, but we're transforming, or at least attempting to influence and transform workplaces, how people work, how they do work, and the whole employment context. That's what we really do. But you hit the nail on the head. Our trifecta, our three-legged stool, quite frankly, is looking at the culture of an organization, its level of employee engagement, and of course leadership. And like a three-legged stool, if one of those is out of whack, then the whole organization is going to be wobbly. And therefore the work inside that particular organization will be difficult or stilted or whatever the case may be. So you can't be doing good work, you can't have good opportunities for people, you can't have a productive organization if, in our opinion, or my opinion, that one of those three things is out of whack.
So what makes a healthy culture in your opinion, if all of these things are kind of working together?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you want to ask a load of questions, that would be it, because everybody's a little bit different in terms of culture. I don't profess for a second to believe that there's one ideal culture. There may be an ideal culture for your organization. There may be a different culture that's ideal for my organization or for any other different organization. We don't subscribe to a theory that, we got to go and turn everybody into one fell swoop, simple one size fits all culture. What I do believe, though, if we look at those three pieces intertwined, that culture is influenced by leaders. There's absolutely no question. I actually do a talk. Some people that are watching this may have actually seen this talk, where I put up a slide of the White House and I say, does the leader in the White House change the culture? And then you show a picture of Trump and you show a picture of Obama, and instantaneously people get how a leader can influence culture. I would argue, without being political, that the culture under the Obama tenure versus the Trump tenure are two completely different cultures, like completely different. So to us, leadership influences a culture, which is why we believe those three things are tied. Then in culture, then will have an impact on how engaged your folks are or not. Is there a causal relationship from one to the other? I don't think so. It's a circle that goes around. You mess with one, you're going to start with the other. So I don't, organizations will call us and say, well, how do we fix culture? It's not that simple a question. There's not a necessary starting point. So you do some different diagnostics and whatnot. But to get back to your question, if I remember correctly, because it was like a minute ago, Maritimers, we talk too much. How can you influence culture, or how does culture fit across different organizations? It's different for everyone. So I think I nailed it. So.
Is there I believe in our world of promotion of healthy workplaces, there's absolutely a linkage between when leadership is supportive
Sure.
or various programs, initiatives, etc., and when they're not. And that direct support or lack thereof can absolutely affect engagement. Would you concur in some of the work you've seen?
Oh, absolutely. You know, it's one of those things that sometimes gets paid lip service. You know, let's put a nice logo on a wall in a hallway somewhere, kind of like, you know, your vision statement, your values, and people don't really know what they mean and they haven't internalized them. I'd say the same holds true for culture. There's absolutely no question, as I alluded to before, that how leaders present fully influences how a culture evolves. There's absolutely no question. That's a direct linkage for sure.
Yeah, and often we find that the senior leadership involvement and promotion of what they believe in and really does help. And you can kind of see the connections all the way through, even with
Absolutely.
your middle managers and frontline staff, if the hierarchy is as such.
Yeah.
Do you have any examples of how you've taken an organization or a workplace from point A to point B, and maybe some of the things you noticed early on, then with some of the work, what are some of the successes and challenges that you've had with, say, an organization of manufacturing or someone like that?
Yes, with respect to culture specifically. Yeah. So one of the things that we've done, which is pretty funky, I think, is, and I'll sidebar for a second. We actually have a partnership with Western University. They have an industrial organization psychology department there, and some of those students that aren't pursuing academic careers come and work with us, sort of a pseudo internship, not formalized. But and several years ago, one of those students that came to work for us was very interested in culture. He was doing a lot of his dissertation work in that area, and he brought forward this notion of, hey, let's measure culture. Like, what are you talking about? And there's actually some various theories out there. We adopted one. Long story short, we built a tool that can assess an organization's culture. And here's the beauty, and here's the rub. This is really cool. Is you can measure what people perceive the culture to be right now today, but you can also ask people what they would prefer the culture to be. And by doing that, you know, if management or leadership is in agreement with where preferred culture needs to be, well, now guess what? When you're recruiting new people into the organization, you don't recruit against where this culture, you recruit against that culture. When you're building leadership training, you don't build leadership training to this culture, you built it to that culture. We've done that with, I would say, a whole lot of firms, but we've done it with a number of different organizations. And the transition is phenomenal because now you've got leaders that are over here bringing everybody along to this new preferred culture, if you will. That's pretty funky stuff.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's neat about it is it's not fuzzy. It's not this nebulous kind of nail jello to a wall kind of concept, because you can actually measure it and actually put some specific science around it. That's cool.
That's really cool. Measurables are always great.
Yeah, people love measurement, right? As opposed to, I have this feeling that our culture is this, we should do this. Well, now I can say definitively, you know, scientifically, it's this measure. We're going here. Kind of cool.
I love that.
Yeah.
Any common trends you've seen in your work that maybe come out of, I know not everyone is the same, and I know it's not an approach that can be even thought of as cookie cutter, but have you recognized some maybe challenges in your world of workplace and the people and optimizing performance? Any common trends or challenges that you've seen that you've had to kind of step in and help out of it?
I'll be honest. You know, one of the difficult things for organizations, and I wouldn't say this is necessarily a trend, but it's a trend in so much that we see this frequently, and that is a disconnect between leaders and the rest of the organization. But there's gulf, if you will, that exists, and when you have that, you've got frustrated leaders and you've got frustrated employees, and when that exists, you know, the two shall never meet, kind of thing. That's where typically when we tend to get involved in when organizations call, you know, 1-800 help me. That's not a real telephone number, so don't call that, folks.
Yeah.
But I probably has somebody owns it. Uh, so that's where we see it, and it's that, really that disconnect. I'll tell you where it shows up. The first place it shows up is engagement. Again, not to be self-promoting here, but we also have built an engagement survey. Some folks may have seen it. We partnered with London Inc. a year ago to do London's best places and workplaces that was scientifically measured. And people will say, well, we're not sure what's going on. We have a morale problem, or we have this problem. So if you can bring measurement to it, you can start to say, okay, well, hold on a second, your engagement is way off. What's the root cause of that? 9 times out of 10, there's a disconnect between leaders and there's a disconnect between employees. And I'm not saying it's the leader's fault. I'm not saying it's the employee's fault, but you can get to the root cause of the problem and then start to say, okay, how do we bring these two things together? So not always easy.
No, I was going to say it's probably not easy at all, but it's good to have that concrete data and measurement to really assess.
Yeah. But people like data, right? And because it, although I just saw that a poll that came out recently that we're trusting less and less in science, but nonetheless, we still, to this point, still have some trust in science and measurement, and it's easier to get your head wrapped around it.
Absolutely.
It doesn't feel like somebody just made it up, right? So,
no, love that. You're certainly well versed in this. You do some amazing work. Any final thoughts as we leave our time today?
Well, I think the key message that I would leave people with is don't just focus on one of those three things. They're intertwined. One does not necessarily beget the other, but they're tied together. And keep in mind, if you start fritzing with one element, say you're going to try to increase your engagement with your employees, that's going to have an impact on how you're doing leadership. It's going to have an impact on your culture. And any one of those in any different combination or permutation, you got to keep the three in lockstep with one another. So, if I could be so bold, back many years ago when I was doing my business school studies, there's this formula, the diamond D of strategy. People who have been to Ivy will know this. We talk about strategy and your environment, and these two have to meet, but then there's this whole other element to it, which includes management preferences, which is short form for leadership, resources, do you have the right people on the bus, which is kind of like engagement and culture, and do you have a good utilization of the resources? Got to look at all those things together in order to execute a strategy. It's the same thing, just different titles. So
love it.
Yeah, so cool.
Thank you for taking a few minutes of your hectic schedule for me. From one maritimer to another. Thank you so much, Terry. Really appreciate it.
We had a grand time. Boy.